What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Apartment 113 podcast, where we talk with cool folks in the cannabis and psychedelics industry to learn about their projects and celebrate their successes. My name is Rob Sanchez, and this is episode 34. We're joined today by Certified Ganjier and Co-Founder of the Old Man of the Mountain, Charles Stockstill. Charles is pushing the envelope on cannabis education and connoisseurship. He's bringing a lifetime of cultivation background and a knack for event production to the table. The Old Man of the Mountain provides hash bar cannabis tasting experiences for events and educational sessions to promote community and cannabis appreciation. Find out more by connecting with Charles on LinkedIn. Look for a link in the show notes and enjoy the show. Charles, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rob. I'm glad to be here. I was looking forward to this all month.
Hey, yeah, we set this one up a while back. It's the joys of virtual scheduling sometimes is a little too far out.
Thanks for inviting me on the show, Rob. Me and my wife's company is the Old Man of the Mountain. I'm certainly glad to be here. She's taking care of the kids tonight. So.
Teamwork there. Nice. Yeah, and I've been seeing what Old Man of the Mountain is up to as a guiding light and as an influencer for connoisseurship and cannabis connoisseurship in general. That's excellent to see how you've turned the Certified Ganjier program into this consulting business. Love to hear about that, man. If we try to rewind the clock just a little bit more, how about your early cannabis journey and maybe the steps before the Ganjier certification first?
Okay, yeah. I started my cannabis journey reading High Times back in the 90s, just about like everybody else, and watching Kyle Cushman and Danny Danko, who now have since become friends of mine, and that's pretty wild. But, I started growing guerrilla grows out in my green belt in townhomes, that kind of thing, anywhere I could, out in fields, just underneath trees, whatever I could do, just so I wouldn't have to buy the swag there, the BC kind bud that was coming through in the days that was just ungodly expensive. And that's kind of what got me enthralled with cannabis, is I realized what a stress reliever it was, because I was really angry all the time as a kid. And as soon as I started smoking cannabis, that anger kind of went away. And I was able to de-stress and realize what the plant was about and start self-medicating without realizing why I was doing it or any of those reasons until many years later on.
So kind of found some mellowness or found some good vibes in there early.
Yeah, definitely. The only thing that had kind of given me issue is, everybody had told me weed was bad and it would be a downfall and all that. When I found out they would have been lying to me, I kind of thought they'd been lying about everything else, and that took me down a very bad path for a long time. But happy to see I got out of all that stuff.
Yeah, dude, so, for real though, right? You learn that one thing wasn't presented truthfully. You kind of have to look at the rest of them just to see if there's any other shenanigans in there, right?
But come to find out, they were being pretty honest about the rest of the illicit drugs out there. So always good to stay.
That's a good outcome, or that's a good conclusion to have.
Alcohol too, yeah.
So cannabis is the go-to
drink. Oh yeah, I've never really been a drinker. It never agreed with me. So that was, my family could always drink me under the table, but I could always smoke them under the table. So I was kind of the green sheep of the family.
Man, I relate to you there, I think. And early on, I was kind of opposed to drinking so much, seeing the scene early, like in high school, college days. I was the guy in the corner with the bong or with the horribly rolled joints.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting what you said about the kind of the mood modulation that can come from cannabis and like helping you see the things in maybe a more positive light, right? It's not necessarily making a huge change, but just that perspective shift can be a lot to help out.
Yep. And you don't always realize it's happening at first. You just, you think you're just getting stoned and enjoying life. And then you start to realize that there's actually a lot more purpose behind it than that. And then it all starts to slowly fold together as you mature. It's pretty cool.
That's the wisdom speaking right there, isn't it?
After I started growing and all that stuff, I got pretty heavy into cannabis about 2005, I want to say, and really started wanting to grow it professionally and really get into the business. And that was, in Colorado, right as about the time we got medical. And you could actually start doing it to some legal amount. And I had 21 plants at my house, and I got raided. And they knew the exact number when they came to my door, so I knew somebody had narked on me at that point. But
Yeah,
that's a
that's
story for a
brutal.
different day.
Next
But
episode.
yeah. So I ended up calling the lawyer out of High Times for Colorado. His name was Robert Corey. He made one phone call, got me all my growing equipment back, my dead plants, and my shotgun, which was just for hunting. It was just in the house, but they had to take it because the screwed up laws in
I see.
Colorado about that stuff. And
Right.
gave me all my stuff back, and that got me in the newspaper and a couple other different articles, and that got me, my first little taste of fame. And then I really started to fight for patients' rights and really get my grow going again. Fast forward a few years later, I got into the point where I could clone really well. 4,000 clones every 2 or 3 months off just my little 10 by 10 grow in my basement. And I was supplying
Wow.
all these big growers in Denver all over town, just one after another after another. And I got to meet some really cool people, make a lot of good money. That's when clones were going for like $25 a pop, 10 inches, if so.
Right.
And those were
Right.
good days. And then, I started having all this extra trim around, all this extra larf and all these extra buds just from all this business I was doing. And I didn't know what to do with it. And one of my friends had found, actually, it was my ex who had found Frenchy cannoli videos. And she had her friend translate the videos from French at that point in time, and transcribed them on a piece of paper. So I was reading the paper and watching the videos, over and over and over again until I finally got it right. It took me a good year and a half to, hone in on all the specifics of it. But at that time, nobody
That's
really wanted hash. This was 2009 about.
so early for the cannabis industry in general, right? At that
Yeah.
time, it was like Colorado only. Colorado, California, Oregon.
Yep. So, I'm starting to pull in some pretty large money, 5 figures a month at this point, and I get raided for my second time. But I have all my paperwork in line, and they can't take anything. But they found I had a warrant for running a stoplight, not paying a ticket. So they hauled me in that night anyway. I got out the next day and went back to my plants. All that. I was like, man, you guys suck. And they kept
Right.
harassing me. I was like, I got all my paperwork and everything. And they came back through again. They ended up trying to take my daughter away, and they did. They took my 5-year-old daughter away and gave her to my grandparents for about 7 months. And I was one of 4
Wow.
people in
Okay.
Colorado to win against the state and get my child back that year. So that got me in the newspaper again. And it was real
Yeah,
nice
man.
to put that.
Happy to hear that too. Kind of reunite, right?
Absolutely. It was good to be back with our family and, knew that we had fought the good fight and put a little precedent out there, because then other families started getting their children back in Colorado. And anytime I found a situation that I could help on, that children had been removed, I reached out to those people and try to help, because you just got to learn their system, play their system, and, it all comes out in the end.
You have to actually
So,
play the game. You can't
got her
just
back and,
resist, right?
yeah. So got her back, and then, things really started to blow up real big again. And then I ended up getting robbed for 14 pounds by one of my buddies I'd been doing
Oh,
like
man.
work with for the last about year. Go over to his house, I'm dropping off the pounds, set the box down, turn around to go shake somebody else's hand. The next thing I know, my head is going through a glass table. Then they're just
Whoa.
pounding me on my head, asking me where my wallet, my gun is, all my stuff. And I didn't have any of that with me one day because I was going to see my buddy.
It was not
And
that kind of transaction.
no,
Yeah.
no. So I stood up after like 6 guys had been beating on me, and I walked out of this guy's house. I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine their faces. I could only see about 2 feet in front of me at this point. It was just a cloud, blood all over my face and everything.
Dude.
And
Yeah, that's
so
brutal.
I walk out. I'm walking through the neighborhood. I call my ride. They come pick me up, but not for the cops see me. And they're like, "Why are you all bloody?" And at that point, I'm like, this just happened at this house. I just got robbed. I'm in I'm in Aurora with a guy who I grew up with and who's now the senior detective of Aurora. So I drop his name.
Okay.
They let me
Yeah.
go chase after these guys, get him all hemmed up. He's still in jail as far as I know.
Wow.
So yeah, that was pretty crazy. And then I just dropped out for about 10 years of the game after that. I lost, all my investors because they weren't sure if I
Mm.
was in on it or if I'd actually got robbed. And so everybody just backed out and let me do my own thing. And I moved to Texas and started, running a AAA
Oh.
station and got really good at that for a long time. And
Okay. So it was kind of a
was the
sign of
hero
like
on the
a
road.
small career change, right? A little shift of
Yeah.
focus after that last one. Yeah.
And I
I
went
can
from
only
Colorado to
imagine, dude.
Texas. So it was just a huge change.
And there's a shift in the laws as well there in Texas.
Oh, absolutely. Just 1 gram hash down there, I believe, still to this day is a felony.
And we're waiting on them to
So
catch up. I don't know who's going to be last, Texas or Kansas.
probably Texas.
Yeah, it's bad if even Kansas does something before you.
So right
That's
after
where
all
I
that,
grew up,
it's
actually.
right before the pandemic hit, and I had just gotten out of a
Ah,
relationship and met Catherine at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was growing in Oklahoma at this point because I moved out of Texas. I said, "The heck with this! I'm going back to the cannabis game." So I did that for about a year
yeah.
in 2020, and I set up a couple commercial grows, had a really good time. Then the pandemic hit, was making really good money, and then she got an offer for a travel nurse to just go make oodles of money. So I said, "All right, let's go." And
Oh,
I took my kid and her 2 children and did them homeschool for 2.5 years during the
oh,
whole
wow.
pandemic, and
That's
we
awesome,
traveled the
man.
country all
Yeah.
together.
Which years did you homeschool the kids through?
From March 2021
Like second
to
grade to sixth grade, or kind of what
we've got
age range?
our kids are right now they're 14, 10, and 8. So they
Oh
were
man,
I
you were
had one in
playing
every
teacher
school
across the
system.
board.
Yeah,
For real. I think
and I
my,
never.
oh, sorry, getting a little bit of lag. Yeah, my daughter is
That's all.
actually 7 months, and we're thinking about homeschooling her eventually here. So still got a few years to figure that out. I might have to ask you
If you
some
can do it,
questions.
if you got the time, do it. It's cool.
So you were playing teacher
So
for a
we're
few
all just,
years.
yeah, it was really neat. It was definitely kind of like Frenchie says he had a time of year of his life where he was a father, and that was the most important thing to me and or him. And I think I'm going through that point in my life right now because that's what I get the most enjoyment out of, is being a dad.
That's excellent. Yeah, really living that life now, kind of stepping into it, helping raise the next generation, watching them make their own
Absolutely.
decisions. That's got to be crazy.
Oh yeah, my 14-year-old daughter, she's pretty involved with the garden, whether it be tomatoes or marigolds or anything like that. So she knows what she's doing. She's getting passed on, just like
You
my
gave her
dad
the
did me,
green
but
thumb.
he was just teaching me how to
Yeah.
do, yeah, subsistence farming. That's how I grew up. So
Okay, so your family was already farming sustainably, and you were able to learn
yeah,
some of those
my
skills early,
family
huh?
was a bunch of hippies, and the whole sustainable thing from the '70s. They were on that wagon.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, that's got to be fun. I'm sure that's an interesting upbringing, and it's a ton of skills to just bring into adulthood, man. It's some stuff that you feel like everyone needs to know, but society
I
kind
didn't
of
realize
makes
it
it a
would
little
take me this
easier.
far, just from learning how to grow peas when I was 4 years old. Now here I am with, this 10-foot monster in the back behind me.
Yeah, that lady looming over you back there. What cultivar do we have here in the yard?
That I think's Little Wayne from Motherlode Gardens. They
Ooh,
tend to do really
that's
good up
awesome.
here in Maine. You get them about 2 feet, 3 foot before you put them out in May, and then they get real big.
Nice. And in Maine, you have one outdoor season, or do you like depth to make that into two harvests?
You could dep if you wanted to, but our grow season's so short up here. It's a challenge. We get about three
It's
months
better
of
to.
good weather.
Oh, I see. You just kind of need to maximize that time you have outside.
Like 2 days ago, our light cycle is officially 12 hours, so we're pretty far ahead equatorially.
Yeah, for real. Right. I'm trailing behind you guys back here in Vegas.
Yep. So after we were travel nursing and all that, we were in Florida in Cocoa Beach, and I'm on Frenchie's page, and that was the day that he passed. And on that
R.I.P.,
same
buddy.
day, I'd found out about the Ganjier program, and that was the last place that he had put his knowledge. So after I got that news, um, I went and smoked a big blunt out on the beach and a big hash cigar. And then I found out about the Ganjier program while I was scrolling through his page. So I wrote them every day for 2 weeks from the day that Frenchie passed away, I believe. It might have been the next day, but it was real close. And they told me they were full, and they kept telling me they were full. But after about 2.5 weeks, I got a letter saying that somebody had dropped out, and they could now accept me. And so I, jumped on
Wow,
it,
man.
and within I think December of 2021 is when I went through and did my live training and my exam on the same week.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
got certified. It was a challenge. It
That's
scared the
excellent.
heck out of me. I was sweating bullets, and people around me were failing all over the place and crying, and
Yeah.
I was just, oh gosh, it was a moment, man.
Right, and for those that don't know, the final step of the certified Ganjier is you can do this separate. You can go out for a live training and then come back for the testing, or you can go out in the same week, which seems to be how You did it, and how I did it as well in March of 2022. And it was definitely stressful. The night before, I was
Yeah.
reading my test paper again and again, just trying to confirm I
Yep.
knew everything because I that was
Everybody else
still
is
I don't know if
partying and
that's
you
the
can't
law.
go.
Yeah, it's like everyone's hanging out basically and relaxing because their live training's over. It's like, guys, tomorrow I got to I got to sit at the desk and get this right, man. And there were a few
Yep.
people that failed I think on the written, there was a few, but in the actual live assessment, there was a lot of repeat attempts that were needed on that one.
No, I'll be the first to admit I did not pass on my first one. It took the second try for me to pass, and I thought I had lost
Was
it
there,
at that point.
oh man, yeah. Was there something was there something specifically that you think you maybe missed the first time around or something that needed more attention in the review?
Well, me and Derek had concluded that I had thought too deeply about that assessment and really tried too hard. And the second
Oh, kind
assessment,
of.
I just ran through real quick and pulled all the numbers, and I was on spot. I wasn't even a point off on the numbers on the
Oh,
second one,
interesting.
whereas the
Yeah,
first
it's
one I
kind of
was
just
about four
like a little
points off
self
all total.
sabotage, overthinking.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw that
Yeah.
happen to other people too that would fry their palate the night before just by smoking all night or drinking all night. Next day they couldn't taste anything, and it was. I felt for those people.
Dude, I smoked a lot up there on that week. My palate
Yeah.
was pretty spent by Friday, but
Yep.
the test was awesome, man, and the whole experience. I think becoming a certified Ganjier was very memorable, and the folks that you meet throughout the process have been top notch, and yourself included. I just love that the certification is really a sign of passion for the plant. It's a
Oh,
sign
man,
of,
I couldn't agree
dedication
more.
to the community. Yeah.
Well, I found out through this process that I have family that lives out there in Eureka and Redding that have been out there for the last 80 years that knew everybody and everybody knew
What
her.
the heck?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, what? So I ended up staying out at her house for free that whole time and getting hooked up with, the club of Northwestern California. So that was pretty cool. And then
Yeah, dude,
learning that
definitely.
Kevin had been watching me for like the last, 3 or 4 years while I was doing stuff in Oklahoma and traveling the country and stuff and my breeding projects. And he knew who I was and I didn't know who he was. I was like, wait a
Oh,
minute here.
dude. Yeah, that's got to feel good.
That was real cool. And now me and him
Right.
have really kind of, connected and we talk from time to time and invested in each other's friendship. So that's really cool.
Yeah, man, definitely. I think it's been a great way for these some of these legacy guys like Frenchie, Kevin, these people that have been working for the space so long that are getting kind of pinched by the margins and the legislation, the licensing, and just all the other red tape of the cannabis industry. It's been an excellent way to spread that knowledge and make a business out of having all that experience. I mean, there's so many folks across the nation and the world even that want that knowledge or that don't have those decades of growing experience or that perfect environment that Northern California has.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been doing this for 25 years at this point, and I was blown away by California. That's the mecca.
Yeah, and then how did you end up in Maine then choosing was Maine on the cards for the caregiving
Well,
program and the plant count or for other reasons?
well, that was part of it. But we were looking at other places like the Finger Lakes in New York. Living in Texas and Oklahoma as well as my wife Catherine. We wanted to get out of the hot, and so I guess we're climate refugees at this point, is what I guess we're called.
Yes.
So
Escape to the
so we
cool
moved up
weather.
here, and it reminds me of Colorado 30 years ago, before everybody moved to Colorado. And
Wow.
there's still
Yeah.
open wild spaces up here. There's still lots of nature. And Colorado used to have a tourist season where everybody came during winter, and then everybody left during the summertime. And it's kind of the opposite here. Everybody comes in the summertime. Some people come in the wintertime, it seems like, but our population in Maine doubles in the wintertime. It's absolutely insane.
And you guys get some pretty serious winters over there. I lived in Minnesota for a while. I'm sure it's rivaling that with the level of snow that you're getting off the coast too.
It's been pretty mild, honestly. Growing up in Colorado, I saw 7-foot storms when I was a kid quite often, but you don't see them anymore. It's the way that
Okay.
the heat's going, and same thing up here. There's a lot more
I
wet.
see. I see. Yeah, Maine is one state I have not been to yet. I need to get up in that little pocket of the country over there in the Northeast. How is the industry and the scene evolving in Maine? I know that it was so caregiver heavy for a long time that
Well,
the industry.
that's gone down by a third, if not half, over this last year. As many caregiver licenses have been lost. We're kind of
Oh, they
facing the
weren't.
same issues that we're having in California. Larger MSOs moving in,
Yeah. Are
bringing
they
the
not
price down.
renewing the caregiver licenses, or it's just harder to profit as a caregiver?
It seems like it's harder to profit.
I see. You're just doing too much work for the value at that point, or you have to
Yeah.
sell your
And
product for
even my
so
garden
much.
back behind me is just for fun. I've like, if I sell that for a profit, I'll be tickled, but I doubt that will happen. It's mainly just
That's
going to hash
the.
production.
I see. Okay. And have you gotten into selecting your cultivars then for hash, or do you make hash out of any cultivar?
Um, very complicated question. The first part, yes,
Hey,
I do have my own strain called G Fire that I've been working with for about 15 years. That is a really good washer. Although it did not like Maine at all, and I can show you. This is pathetic actually. This plant here,
uh-oh, looking
yeah, but
crispy.
it's got one branch that's doing just fine. But had Septoria come in and just knock out all my G Fire. It just
Oh
didn't like it
man.
up here. And the summer up here was extremely wet. I'm not the only one. A lot of my friends are having really bad problems up here this year because of how much rain. We had 45 days of consecutive rain this summer with like 3 days and then 32 days after that of rain.
Wow, wow. And in outdoor cultivation with cannabis, how do you mitigate the rain that way? Do you just let the plants just need
No,
to
I've got really
survive?
sandy soil. That's about all I got.
Uh, just try to drain the water away, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Then lots of sulfur, lots of copper sulfide too. Not lots, but what's directed.
So a little bit of awareness there. Do you think that your G Fire will adapt here, or maybe uh, be able to
If I
lean
do
into
some
the
breeding,
environment?
it's a possibility. If I breed it out a little bit, but I don't know if I'm going to try it again outdoor next year, just because I had 8 of them and only 2 are barely chunking along, and they're not very happy.
Oh man! And if it's such a good yielder and it's good for washing, you might as well
Yep,
just have it inside.
yep.
Yeah, it is tempting though to grow
So
those
you
outdoor
were also asking
monsters.
how I'd come up with this whole old man of the mountain thing, and I wouldn't have come up with that if it weren't for Frenchie and Ganjier program,
Yeah,
their
dude, let's hear
history
the
part.
story.
So going while I was going through the whole online program, I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do for a business to support my family. And I know it's not going to be growing weed, even though I'm really good at it. Just there's too much involved with that these days. It's real hard unless you've got a big commercial backer, and that's not what I want to do anymore. So I came up with kind of this Knights of the Table idea, Arthur, uh, but based off of the Old Man of the Mountains teachings from the Hashishans or the assassins from back in the day. So I wanted to create a platform where cannabis sommeliers, ganjiers, or like-minded people could advance the world of hash, whether it be through education, through production, through growing, cultivation, any number of facets. Kind of pull it all together and drive the market towards this final magic of the plant that Frenchie shared with all of us.
And that is one of the first sessions too in the Certified Ganjier program, digging into the history of cannabis and the ancient history and the world history of the plant is unbelievable. How much we have as a society or as multiple societies have kind of changed the narrative from the earlier days when cannabis was such a pivotal role in rituals, even in sustenance with seed fibers and things like that. And I think they even point out that at the time of the Hashishans, they were kind of scapegoated by the society even
Yep.
at that time, which was almost the beginning of kind of the villainization, right? Or the stigma could have almost started right there at that time, just because there was not too much understanding of that sect and kind of their rituals, and so they just kind of hung on the fact that they had cannabis and hash and kind of villainized the thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's just more of the smear campaign repeated. I imagine asshole Anslinger probably took notes from what was happening in history from that situation to see how he could reenact it.
Yes, because it's just kind of was redone almost century after century in one form or another. And now we're sort of
Yep.
unraveling that knot still, untying it, trying to figure out how to get it all straight again. What do you think about
Yep.
the industry's approach so far in trying to remove that stigma?
I don't think it's working. I think that the models that we've created in all these different states and medical and recreational models are failing, and it's giving power to the pharmaceutical and multi-state organizations.
That none of the programs are necessarily united or getting everything 100% right. And that's what kind of lends the space for a federal program or for someone else to step in and try to smooth over the gaps.
Big business or big tobacco, whatever you want to call it, is keeping us divided, and it's working.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, uniting as a community, helping to share the love for some of these like sun grown farmers or smaller shops definitely helps. But it is just a battle of the times, right? With change, and
Yeah.
the cannabis industry has been through so much. I mean, the last 30 years in cannabis could probably be compared to like 150 years of alcohol, or 200 years of that, with just all the law changes and industry differences. The fact that you can go like 700 miles away and have completely different laws, it is
Well, what's
messy.
interesting is there's this book called The History of Drugs that Kimberly Connolly recommended to me.
Ah,
And it goes through like Tylenol, tobacco, everything. And it's amazing how much this story is similar to aspirin, ayahuasca, mushrooms, cannabis, tobacco. This all
huh.
kind of, it's just all the same. Medicine has been taken and used for our societal gains. I'm trying to get you some better light here.
Yes, yeah, man. I'm gonna have to
There
add
we
that
go.
book to the list, dude. That looks awesome. And
I was
yeah,
talking
those.
about a article I wrote today actually called "The Proletariat and the Bourgeoisie of the Cannabis uh, Culture These Days." So yeah, I was just talking about how much the working force, this we've really been the voice of cannabis in our counterculture since the 70s. This has been something that we've used to support ourselves to get through our days, to go work for the man. And now that it's becoming legalized, the man now has the power over it, and we're losing it. And we really need to get together as one force, whether it be under the Origins Council or something like that, or the Last Prisoner projects. There's a lot of different entities out there doing really great work. And if we could really just pull together like they are and pull our resources together like they are, we could fight them and make some differences. And there are, a few places that are doing that. Out in California, for one, would be the Humboldt Legacy Grace Project. They're doing some absolutely phenomenal work around the country and around the world to help small farmers set a baseline of how they need to be treated and teach people how they can file for to get laws enacted and to
Like
do
how to
grassroots
actually
movements.
interact with their lawmakers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
no, those movements are really necessary at this point, and man, fighting a hell of a battle going up against the feds or big pharma, and investing
Yep.
on that front. Yeah, definitely see the need
So you know,
for that
and
attempt
a
or that
lot of
need
things
to
I do,
unite. Yeah.
and a lot of things I do, I'm always looking for where can I set that moment of precedent? Where can I do it the right way? Where can I take my business, what I'm doing, and showcase it to help other people move our story along? Like taking the Old Man of the Mountains hash bar down to 420 Washington Park. We got harassed by the New York City Police Department and the Parks Department. But as soon as I told them I was a certified Ganjier out there doing education, They did 180 degrees and not only left me alone, but were fascinated by what we were doing out there.
Wow. So they actually got a little bit of education there on their own.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's very
And
cool.
we've
Can you
got another
explain what you're
franchise
doing with
that's
the
doing the
hash
same
bar?
thing. Yeah, we've got another franchise doing the same thing. He set up publicly where everybody's usually allowed to vend, and the police came to hassle him. And now he's, you know, trying to set precedent out there. He wants to go do it again, and just see if they will, hassle him again, and see if he can continue to fight the good fight. Now, I love that stuff. I really do. Anytime that we
Yeah,
see,
that passion.
like for example, a garden that's supporting cancer patients isn't licensed, that at all, isn't playing the government's games at all, but they are taking a big chunk out of big pharma by healing cancer children, healing cancer patients of all ages. And to
Right.
see that
Providing some
happening
joy
without
and
a piece of
relief.
paper just warms my heart because legacy never dies and there's nothing they can do to stop it. So, if their system's not working, we shouldn't be playing their games anymore. Just stop playing their games and they won't have the money
Right.
to fight us anymore.
That's the funny part, honestly. It's like, okay, well, if the feds were to take over or big pharma were to move in quickly, many of us are already comfortable operating in the gray area. So it's kind of
Yep.
not a leap to maintain business.
Yep.
It
And
starts to
same
get
thing could be
risky,
said for the
obviously, but
tobacco industry 80 years ago. But look what's happened to it now.
just
Most
completely
people don't even,
standardized.
most people have never even seen a tobacco plant. They don't know how to cure it. And that's happening in our own culture right now. That's why Ganjiers and people like us are so important, to get that word out there about, this is the proper way you can do things.
Definitely, man. I
And there's
feel like
not
the
just one way.
consumer. Yeah, man. The angle I've been trying to take is towards consumer education and trying to give people the stepping stones they need to find their version of connoisseurship. Kind of how can you
Yep.
take that enjoyment just beyond, you're not just getting high or feeling the effects, but like what is the flavor? Was that a fruity flavor? Was it earthy? And kind of analyzing some of those
Yep.
effects. Because I think with a better appreciation from the consumers, farmers can actually price products at a reasonable price as well. Because if you get quality and your buyers understand quality, you don't have any disconnects, right? You're okay paying
Yeah.
maybe a mid shelf or a reasonable price for that flower
Yeah.
that was grown
Then you're
reasonably.
removing brokers and middlemen, and the farmers are actually getting what they deserve. And that's technically how it
Yeah.
should be.
And you kind of stop that price slide where we're just seeing this race to the bottom. Like,
Yep.
how much cheaper can we make an eighth of flour in Nevada? It's pretty
But
bad. And if you consider
the
just a
bad
general
truth of
eighth
it,
of
though,
flour you buy, it's crappy.
that's agriculture all around the world. Just
Oh,
show me
that's a
a
good
rich
point.
farmer. And I don't know many of them that aren't subsidized by the state or the government.
Or yeah, or with equipment all off of their loans and government
Yep.
programs. Yeah. And
And that
and that's
same
just
can
a
be
race
said
to the
for the
bottom
cannabis
too.
industry that I know. I know very few that aren't substantially in debt.
Yes, yeah, and I mean even I was in a dispensary training session, essentially how to open the dispensary, and they were showing some financial projections to expect your first few years, and it was bad. It was like
Yeah.
you're basically failing completely for about 3 years, and then you can break even
Yep.
if you're lucky. So it's a tough fight right now on that
Yep.
side.
Now, if you want to start a business,
What's next for
start anything
Old
but a
Man of the
cannabis
Mountain?
business
I
right
saw
now,
that there's a
because everything's
cruise
easier. You
coming.
could start a restaurant easier than you could a cannabis business right now.
True, true. Yeah, start up a coin laundromat. There you go.
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah, you can get the
Way
loan, you
easier.
can get the rent, you can get some machines. You'd be up and running in like a week.
Yep. Be a life of a farmer is not an easy one.
Yes, man. I told folks that growing indoors is like doing construction in the closet. But
Yep.
it's just like so much work going on in a single room, like a 12 by 12 room, as you mix soil and change pots and grow and do everything in that space. It's hard work, man. And definitely like a virtuous pursuit, spending time as a farmer and producing anything. I think we have a society of consumption, so making and producing is so valuable as well.
Oh yeah. No, I've got squash and tomatoes and everything I grew this year, and you finally I dare you to calculate the money that you spend growing your own tomatoes. Don't ever do that. You will not be happy with your outcome. Most expensive
Yeah,
tomatoes you've ever had.
but how good, right? When you get to
Oh,
slice one
so
of your
good.
own tomatoes.
We
Yeah.
all try to convince ourselves that this is the cheapest way to go. And when you really start farming, you're like, man, it's actually quite hard to produce food cheaply enough for my whole family on how much we need.
Yeah, and I was reading an article recently about the amount of space that you would need to sustainably farm for a family, and I think it was averaged to like, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think it was 800 square feet per person, and they were talking about
Yeah, that
like the
sounds about right.
tracks of plants,
I've seen a
saying like,
couple different designs that follow that. And yeah, that
okay,
works, but where's your terroir? Do you have good soil to use?
yeah,
That's another big
right.
question. How much are you going to be spending on amendments to get your soil correct? How
Because
much
if you're
topsoil
starting
do you
with a
got to
bad
bring in?
property,
There's a whole bunch of different stuff on each property. You never know.
right, right, and that's where you could plant your whole garden out and find out that half of it's in the wrong, out of the sun or in the wrong location or
Yep.
in bad drainage. Yeah. How did you go about working on your property now and finding the most ideal place to grow? Did you have a method, or was
Oh,
it
I,
more
I
kind of
really didn't have that
analyzing
much
throughout the
choice.
season?
I,
That
I
makes it
didn't
easy.
really have that much choice here. I've got like a lawn here. That's my space for my garden over there, and then forest. And you can see from the tree line, I only get about
You're gonna get
7 hours
shadowed.
a day on that spot. No.
Hey, sometimes the property decides for you.
So, and it was all sand. So what I did, being Patrick King, his fellow Ganjier himself, I had a whole bunch of his soil, so I amended all this sandy soil with his. I put about 4 or 5 gallons in each hole, and then just mixed it in with the natural soil I had here, and they were doing really good
Oh wow,
up until the Sepultura kicked in. But that had nothing to do with the Soil King's dirt. That's just Maine being so freaking
that's
wet
just
this
the
year.
environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, you're battling monster humidity up there.
Yep.
Well, what's this about the cruise coming up that you'll be appearing on and spreading some cannabis love? Can a cruise in
Yeah.
New
So
York, I think I saw.
yeah, I do a lot of events down in New York City. Got invited by an event company down there when I first debuted the hashish tasting bar, and that has just flowered into meeting everybody I thought I would never meet. Kyle Cushman, Danny Dako, White Boy Kev from the Marina Boys. I mean, I could go on and on name dropping. I hate doing that stuff. I don't like it because I meet these people. They're just like us. It's great. You get just to hang out with your friends, and that's the best part of it for me.
Right.
Every once in a while, you meet one that's kind of a jerk, and you're like, oh, I thought you were cool, but oh well.
Yeah, you can move on. There's plenty of other
Yep,
folks, right?
yep. And so
Yeah, I think I
the
found that too. That many of the folks in the industry, if you can connect with them on what they're doing and provide the same value or match their passion, everyone's so willing to talk and celebrate what they love as well.
yeah, yeah. So the NYC Canna Cruise, that was opportunity that was presented. By another. He does some like major things. Like his last concert he put on was for Snoop Dogg, so he wanted me to work with this boat he has that carries 350 people. So we were thinking like 300 people in attendees. Another 50 for the vendors, VIPs, that kind of thing. And we had that going pretty well, but we had to postpone it just because the gas for the boat is $7,000. So I got to make sure I've got all
Oh,
my ducks in a row before
yeah.
we pull the trigger and have the date that we book without losing our deposit. And we got to be a little more careful with this venue than others. So just got to make sure
Yes,
it's perfect.
I can imagine event planning introduces whole new variables and problems as you try to
Oh yeah,
line up how to get these events to go off without a hitch, or even just setting up the logistics.
yeah. My first taste of it, I kind of grew up doing it with my dad. He raised money for the Mule Deer Foundation and the Turkey Federation. He just retired and he figured out he raised about $11 million in my lifetime because I went to all that with him.
Wow.
And
Yeah, man,
so
that's
I
not
got
a
to
small
do
number.
banquets and events with him my whole life and wasn't really paying attention. I guess I was more than I thought. But Dan Klomstroff, who's another Ganjier, he ended up working for the Boston Beer Company in Canada, and they wanted to throw a kind of cannabis event party down here in Boston. So I found a venue down there. They offered me the gig. Threw them a big party, made a big educational class of what's driving cannabis culture in Boston. Had the owners from the Boston Beer Company, like all of them, show up. It was absolutely insane. Had a whole bunch of cannabis people in Boston there as well, like a guy that ran for mayor. He was there, and we're still now friends and doing lots of other cool projects together. And that was the first event. Was that it was at the Boston Cigar Lounge for the Boston Beer Company, and I didn't
Wow.
realize that's kind of what I wanted to do until I did that, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I think I'm going to get back into this and
For
start
sure.
doing things along this route, because I already had all the experience from my childhood, and my dad's still
Yeah.
around, so I could call and ask him for advice on how to raise money or set up events and that kind of thing.
Right. Right. And be it cannabis or turkeys, events are events, and raising money is the
And
same
he used to
game,
be
right?
real hard on me for cannabis, but now he's come around. He calls me his son the Professor Cannabis guy, or all sorts of other
That's
funny stuff.
awesome.
And
Yeah, it's pretty
yep,
good seeing your parents and family like come full circle. Like when I left K State, I graduated K State and went to Colorado to cultivate basically instead of finding a job like everyone else.
yep,
And there was definitely some black sheep kind of feelings from different folks in the family. All of that's completely gone now. It's just like, oh yeah, this is like they're actually like, oh, you made a good decision, or like what a unique
yep.
time that you had to be able to do that. It's like the perspective has changed so much, man. It's so welcome too.
No. And my dad, he's been absolutely amazing. He was there for me when I got robbed. He welcomed me back into his house after all the shit went down, and so it was just he's been an amazing force on my life. And he was one who taught me how to garden. I
Sounds
don't think
like
he
it.
realized he was teaching me how to grow cannabis at that point in time, but now I've been
Yeah.
able to feed my family one way or another, and I think that's ultimately what he was trying to do.
Yeah, man. I think that's what we could all want for our kids, right? That we can pass on the info they need to be successful and take care of themselves and their own families. That's excellent, man. And
You know,
and is your
trying to do the
family
same for
all?
my children now, and
Yeah, that's what I was
and
going
the
to
next
ask. Are
generation
you
of cannabis growers. You know.
kind of bringing them up in your steed? They'll be third generation farmers at this point. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, that's like there'll be fifth or sixth generation farmers and like 13th generation soldiers if my daughter enlists.
Wow. Okay, man. 13th.
Yeah.
That's
We've been in
cool.
the military every generation for a long time.
Yeah. Wow. Stockstills have been armed since the beginning, and farming.
But
That's great,
oddly
man.
enough, we're
And cool.
usually on the losing side, so whatever side we're fighting on, you probably want to be on the other one.
So there's a little bit of history we can tell by that. That's funny. Well, what event is next up for you, man? Anything else around the corner or in the near term?
Oh yeah, I've got the Hyde Lifestyle Show coming up in Massachusetts. It's a 3-day event this weekend. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It is a event centered around the craft grower or the small grower. There's not going to be any MSOs there. They're not welcome.
Beautiful.
There's going to be a lot of different tastings available, not just from the Old Man of the Mountains tasting bar, but from all the other vendors that are going to be there. There'll be some really good music and some cool stuff. It's actually seems like it's going to be a better event. I think at the end of this year, I'm going to come up with a review of what events I thought were awesome, what events I wouldn't go back to, that kind of thing. And I think that would
Yeah.
really help people because there's just so many events out there right now. You can really just waste your time on the wrong ones.
Oh yeah, man. And I've been to the conferences before that are
Mhm.
ghost towns, and
Oh, my
you
favorite one
get
so far was
flights
a
and
book signing
hotels.
for Peter Grinspoon.
Oh, was that a quiet one?
It was. There was only about 20 or 30 people there, but they were all doctors, lawyers, and professors, and they actually had questions that kept a Ganjier on their toes.
Ooh, that's awesome.
And
They kind of pushed
it
you.
was the most fun I had all year, I think.
Yes, yeah. I always liked that. For a little while, I was giving software demos in the cannabis space. So I would come up and roll out the software, explain how to use it. And my favorite thing was to run into a user that could challenge me the same way, that could poke
Yep.
holes in the demo and say like, "Oh, you missed this." Actually, I would just be like, "Dude,
I'm not
cheers!"
bored
Like,
right now.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, man. Like I was going through this routine thing, and now you've poked a hole in it, man. It's wonderful. Let's talk about that.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that event
There's
sounds great.
there's something that's come to my mind several times through this interview here, and it's that as a Ganjier, as myself, just as a salesman throughout my life, I always try to match the energy that the customer comes to me with. So if they come really pissed off at Ganjier, I get really pissed off too. I'm like, yeah, I understand. Let's fucking work this out together, and let's work around this and educate them. And I brought more people to the program that way. It's absolutely insane. And when people come up and they want to talk terps and they get really in depth, you can hit them with that. But if somebody's coming up, they're just barely learning, and you try to hit them with all that terpene information, thiols, esters, cultivation knowledge, you're going to overload them, and they just think you're uptight and some kind of jerk. And so it's real hard to learn how to read people. And that's something that I honestly think a lot of Ganjiers could be better at, because I've heard a lot of stories about Ganjiers being too uptight and full of themselves. And
right.
That's not good.
No, not at all. You really want to read the room and make sure you're kind of speaking to the right audience. Nerding out about the terps and things is definitely great, and that maybe is a little pretentious for cannabis connoisseurship, but there's a time and a place. Yeah. And
absolutely.
I think that watching some of the transactions here in Vegas when I'm in the shop, so I can see there are consumers at times who just, they don't want any kind of cannabis connoisseurship today. It doesn't mean that they won't be open to it sometime, but today they're just coming to grab a quarter. Yeah, they need to grab a quarter and pick their kids up and try to get some sleep that night. And it's not a good time to be like, oh, have you tried this terpinolene dominant strain? Terpinolene will really...
I ain't got time for it right now. No mental faculties.
Exactly. So I think it's hard to meet people where they are, but then also find those opportunities when they're open to connoisseurship. And the events that you're explaining and advocating for now, I think are perfect for that. They set the stage that this is a place to come and talk about cannabis already. They set the stage that it's beginner friendly. That's definitely the way to reach out to the community and make an impact.
Yep. There was something that Kevin had taught me on the side while I was there on the campus that had really stuck with me ever since. And that was, if you're trying to teach somebody, if you're trying to mentor somebody, don't tell them exactly what you want them to learn. I'm not saying exactly the same words he gave me, but paraphrasing here. You want to drop a little nugget of knowledge on them that makes them open that door for themselves. And the more often that you can do that, the more that person is going to learn. And so as a Ganjier, learning from the original Ganjier, I took that really to heart. And so when people do come up to me and they want to learn, I say, well, have you checked this out? Have you read this? Have you talked to this person? Then that gets that spark really, gleaming back in their eyes. And that's what I like doing.
Kind of ignite that passion, asking questions against their question rather than just answering it.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's a constant skill you can work on as well, man. I'm looking forward to see what kind of certified Ganjiers everyone becomes with, a decade of background or more, trying to really push the envelope on this space. It's been excellent to be part of the program and to meet all the folks in it as well, man. It's a whole family of Ganjiers.
I agree. We had some huge news happen to this weekend at the Boston Freedom Rally. We got invited to Barcelona next year with a hashish tasting bar.
Yes.
So that'll be the same time as Spannabis. We'll be out there. It'll be our first time in Europe with all this, and it should be just a frickin' hoot, man.
Yeah, that's going to be fun, man, for sure. I'll have to try to get out there to Spannabis here this next year. I was checking everything out this year, but my daughter was born in February, so I'm waiting a little while to leave the country.
Congratulations, by the way, man. First one, that is just mind-blowing.
All right, I'm here to tell the story. We're doing okay still. But it's definitely an adjustment. You don't have to
deal with everything I dealt with, so that's awesome.
Yeah, man. I'm knocking on wood there. I'm happy that society's turned some corners to make it easier on folks in the industry to have families and be a little more stable on that front. Yeah. Awesome, Charles. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, dude. Where can our listeners find out more about you and the next events for Old Man of the Mountain?
The easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn under Charles Stockstill, or on Instagram under _Old Man of the Mountain. And that's usually where I post all my info, or you can go to the Hashish Tasting Experience. It's a new page because they deleted my old one, so.
Gotta stay on your toes.
Yep, exactly. Well, Rob, I really appreciate
awesome,
you
man.
having me out, and this has been my second interview now, so I'm not quite as nervous, but still quite a lot. So,
Oh,
really
dude, you
glad to
knocked
be
it out of the
here
park.
and to share who I am or any knowledge that I can bring forth to the community, or if there's any Ganjiers or the like out there that are looking for a way to put their skills to work, I've got a way for you to do that. So let's talk.
Thank you for listening to the Apartment 113 podcast. For more information about the show, along with our services and courses, visit apt113.com. We offer cannabis software product management, cannabis education courses, and freelance writing. With over a decade of experience in the cannabis industry, Apartment 113 is here to help.